Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mindful Morning with me, Ashley Walkneen. I apologize that this episode isn't actually live, neither was yesterday's. I am in Tennessee in this hotel. We don't have the best of internet connections, so it keeps cutting off in the middle of my feed. So I'm recording this for you separately and putting it up instead. And I want to talk today about mindfulness because I realized that I've been doing these mindful morning episodes for the last 3 weeks, and I haven't actually dedicated an episode to mindfulness. Can you believe it? I've talked about mindfulness in the context of other topics, but today I really want to talk about what is mindfulness, why does it matter, and how can we practice it? So, have you ever noticed that narrator in your mind, constantly talking to you, constantly saying all sorts of opinions and judgments and ideas and beliefs about pretty much any situation you find yourself in and any person you ever meet? So, this is the mind thinking, right? And when we get caught up in this stuff, when it starts to drag us around, we start to act from whatever our mind is telling us about that particular situation. Have you ever caught yourself when you're thinking something very judgmental and then you realize that you're actually acting very judgmentally? This is what it's like when we're living in a moment through the mind. Now, the brain is an organ. Like you have a heart, you have lungs, you have a stomach, you have a brain, and the brain's job is to think critically. This is why, like 80% of what your mind tells you is very critical. It's its job to be a critical thinker. But you can imagine that if all we ever do is live our lives through our mind, that can be very limiting. It limits our behavior, it limits what's possible for us in our lives because it's always going to be very critical. So, mindfulness is the ability to step outside of being the thinker, to watch the mind thinking, to see thinking happen as a process. So, thoughts are basically noise strung together to form sentences. They have no thoughts in and of themselves, have no meaning on them. We assign the meaning. Now, we know this because everybody responds to the same situation in a million different ways. So we assign the meaning, and we assign it based on our cultural background, things we've learned from our childhood and our education. Based on past experiences, our brain basically puts all this information together and forms a prediction that it spews out at us in the moment and says, this is what this moment means, this is what's going to happen next. So it's our job to determine whether or not we want to follow that thought. Now, a lot of people talk about looking at, is a thought true or not? I don't particularly like to ask myself that question, is this thought true or not? I would rather ask myself, is this thought workable? If I follow this thought, does it work for me to build the kind of life and live the kind of way that I really want? I'll tell you why I do that. Sometimes a thought is kind of true. Sometimes, let's say you have a goal and that goal requires you to be outside your comfort zone, to learn a new skill, to do something that you're not very comfortable doing, and your mind starts telling you that you're not very good at it. It may be true that you're not that good at it because you haven't developed the skill in order to execute it masterfully. But if you follow that thought, just because it's true, then you stop yourself from ever mastering that thing that will help you achieve your goal. So, whether a thought is true or not, I really don't care. I want to know in this moment, if I listen to this thought, where does that thought take me? So, mindfulness, you are mindful the minute that you notice that your mind is thinking. The minute that you notice that process happening and you don't judge it because only the mind can judge things, the minute that you just watch it, that is you being mindful. Yesterday on Mindful Morning, I talked about the three parts of ourselves that we have. one part of ourself is our physical self. Another part is the thinking self, which is what it's like to be caught up in all of our thoughts. We have a third part of ourselves that we don't typically exercise, which is the observing part of ourselves. So mindfulness is stepping out of the thinking self into the observer, watching watching the thinking self, watching the physical self as it goes about its day. From this place, from this other perspective, thoughts and feelings cannot dictate and pull us around and drag us around into just reactivity. We have a lot more choice over the way we respond to situations when we are viewing the situation from the observing self. So that is the first benefit of practicing mindfulness. The second benefit of practicing mindfulness is that it helps us with the ability to stay focused. When we get dragged up into our thoughts are like all over the place. So we get distracted very easily and we're not really in the here and now. The other thing, which I also talked about yesterday, is that unless our mind is telling us things about a situation that we're in right now, it's either thinking about the past or it's thinking about the future, ruminating or planning, but it's not actually in the now. And the past and the future are all an illusion. The only place we can ever actually take action from is the here and now. So the ability to be mindful, to step outside of thinking, come back into this present moment, and focus on the here and now is a very great skill to be able to have. It helps you focus. It helps you stay in this moment and do what you need to do. So how do we practice mindfulness? There are two basic ways to practice. The first is through what people would call meditation. But you can do this, what I'm going to tell you, you can do this in like 90 seconds as well. If you don't want to have like a formal long meditation practice, set your alarm for 90 seconds from now. Sit down, close your eyes, and just bring your attention to your breath. Just notice your breathing. Your mind will start to drag you up into thought. This is normal. And when you notice that you're caught up in thought and you're no longer focused on your breath, you recognize that that's happened and you come back into your body, you come back into focusing on your breath. This is like a workout for your mind. Like you go to the gym, this is like a bicep curl. Every time that your mind floats you up out of the present moment into your thinking and you bring yourself back, it's like you're doing a bicep curl. You are increasing your ability to come back to the here and now, to stay focused, and to get into the observing self. So a formal meditation practice of sitting down, closing your eyes, focusing on your breath, and bringing yourself back is one way. Now, I have to say, a lot of people get caught up and they get frustrated with this kind of thing because they think that the point is to not get caught up in thought, to stay with your breath as much as you possibly can. I think they think that's the name of the game, and it's not. Thinking happens. Thinking always happens. If you think about your heart pumps blood to your whole body. That's the function that your heart has. Your brain's function is to think. It's always going to keep thinking. So don't get caught up in trying to stay with your breath. I mean, you want to stay with your breath, but don't get caught up in frustration about when you get pulled into your mind. That's absolutely normal. You just notice it, you come back. You notice it, you come back. The other way you can practice is through out your day. Habitual things that you do that you normally do on autopilot, like brushing your teeth or taking a shower or cooking dinner. It's the same practice. You focus, for example, on chopping the vegetables. Your full attention is on chopping the vegetables, being in the here and now. You'll notice eventually your mind will drag you up into thought and you're not actually chopping vegetables anymore, are you? You're somewhere else. The minute that you notice that, you recognize it, you come back into the here and now, and you keep chopping your vegetables. So again, this is training. This is like going to the gym for your mind. And it will help you increase your ability to stay in the present moment, to focus your attention, and to step into that observing part of yourself where thinking, you're not caught up in it. It's not pulling you around. You recognize this is a thought, and you ask yourself, is this thought workable if I listen to it? And from there, you can guide your actions accordingly. I am going to put a couple mindfulness practices in the Mindful Morning Toolbox, specific step by step instructions for how you can do these practices. So, if you're not opted into the Mindful Morning Toolbox, what it is I put all the actionable resources, cheat sheets, exercises that go along with every topic I ever do, every episode I ever do. And it helps you take this from being an idea and actually apply it, turn it into action. So, find that stuff in the Mindful Morning Toolbox. If you liked this episode, please leave a comment, write a review. I always say this, but it's really important. Share this with other people because you never know what kind of message somebody might need to hear on any given day. Okay, y'all, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.